Hola friends, welcome to the Medicine, Marriage, and Money YouTube channel, the only channel for physicians who want to achieve marital interdependence and financial freedom together. On this channel, you will learn how to show up as the best version of yourself so that you can love intentionally and build a more financially savvy relationship with your spouse. And I am your host, a physician mom, a doctor's wife, a Gottman leader, a certified life and marriage coach, Dr. Kate Mangona. Welcome. Bienvenidos. Thank you so much for coming on my show, Dr. Judith. And I'm going to have you pronounce your name and give your pronouns here shortly. First, I want to introduce you with a short little bio. So you, just like I, am the mother of three. You'll be able to tell us, more about those beautiful children if you want. You're a wife, a board certified physician, and you have your own business, the Aesthetic Doctor and Concierge Medical Arts. I would love to hear more about that. I know you're located in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and you have the full spectrum of non-surgical medical aesthetics as well as individual patient and experiences, their goals. And I know you're a life coach and particularly a graduate from the Martha Beck Wayfinders coaching, which I'm super interested to hear more of. As I most of the people I invite on the show who happen to be life coaches come from the life coach school. So I'm so excited to talk about Wayfinders coaching method. Also, you and your husband's engagement story and what it's like being married to a military family. And also finances, because I know you have a very unique perspective on finances. So welcome, Dr. Judith. Thank you for coming on my show.
Thank you for having me. I have listened to your podcast for years and years and years. And it's always fun to actually be on podcasts that you listen to, right? And so Judith Borger, she, her pronouns. And again, thank you for having me.
Excellent. Okay, so tell me, I want you to start off telling me what your definition of marital interdependence is. Do you have a definition? The other term I find synonymous with marital interdependence is successful marriage.
Yes. So I, knowing that you ask everybody that question, I think my definition is really the whole idea of joining two lives to make both lives better and uplifting each other. And almost this whole idea of the sum of the whole being more than its parts. And so that would be my definition.
Okay. And then tell me, let's go back in time. How many years have you been with your spouse and what was that like meeting for the first time?
Yeah, I have been with my spouse now for 10 years and we have been married for 8.5. So we were actually set up by mutual friends, which is kind of funny. I have never been on a dating app in my life. I feel like, thank God, 10 years ago, I was at the tail end where it was acceptable not to be. I think nowadays, you would probably likely run into dry desert if you were not in a dating app. But, I was at the tail end of that. So I guess it's one of those relationship things that I've never, ever in my life created an online dating profile. So I had a friend and we were both kind of single 30s professional women. And we used to work out together and happy hour together. And she met her now husband on a dating app and met his friend and was like, oh, you would really like this guy. And I was like, no, I don't know, and she was like, no, you should really meet this guy. And then, so she kept kind of sort of pestering us in the most loveliest of ways. And then I gave him my number. We started texting. We started talking. We met on our first date. And, this is where we are now, 10 years later and 3 children later. Two children together later.
You're so similar because we're almost 10 years married and with 3 children. So what are the ages of your kids?
So my first is actually from a prior relationship. So he is 19 right now. And then my younger children are 6 and the baby turns 4 next month.
Oh my gosh, 6 and
I
4.
know.
And tell me, how has your love with your spouse, how has that evolved and changed through the kids? I mean, I know you had a kid before, and so you kind of had an experience of what that was like. And then how has it evolved? And have there been struggles along the way? Answer.
I think it is. I mean, my husband was not the most natural father. I mean, he, of course, loves his children, but he's not the kind of guy that finds like little kid things are like the thing he wants to do over the weekend. So I think we have both like grown together. And now that our children are older, I mean, we're just in a really, really great spot in our marriage. And full disclosure, like I also, have worked with marriage coaches because it's been important to me. And really more the worked on myself. We've not worked on it together to be the partner in a marriage that I wanted to be. And because, again, your life coach school, I think we all come with a manual and we all have this idea of what our spouse should totally do and not do, right? So some of the work has really been on me to accept him and love him and be open to all the amazingness that he is. So we're in a really good spot. And yeah, I mean, I think our love has like matured over the last 10 years. And I think when you go from a purely like romantic, let's get married and everything is exciting relationship, I think your excitement gets different. And at the same time, it feels like our love and our trust and our closeness has gotten much deeper, that we know each other on such a different level now.
Okay. You touched on some super interesting points, because I feel like before you start having kids, when you're married, you have this expectation of what your spouse is going to be as a father or how they're going to help out. Right. I know I did, which is one of the reasons why I sought out coaching, just like you. Like I sought out marriage coach, life coaches, because I was like, wait a second, like what's going on? Like I thought it was supposed to go a different way. So, and I think we have a very special mutual marriage coach friend that starts with an A, and her last, that's right. Alexandra's talking. I
love Alexandra. I totally would love to like officially credit her like the amazingness of my marriage because again, I don't know if you worked with her as a couple, but my husband was not into the whole idea. So just even working with her individually and being so in alignment with who I am and who I am as a spouse and a sexual partner and all of those things. Yes. Alexandra, you got your shout out here because you deserve it.
And she was on my relationship summit this summer, and I'm actually been texting with her recently because we're going to hopefully be collaborating on something soon. But back to your marriage. Okay, let's talk about your engagement story and then your wedding date. Like, tell me this story.
Yeah. So, I think both our engagement story and our wedding dates are really stories of like improvising. So, we actually got engaged on Halloween, and my husband had just come back from a deployment like a little while back. So we had booked this trip to Key West for Halloween because we were going to go get dressed up on Duval Street and, like do the fun kind of like couple thing and have a vacation in the Keys. Unbeknownst to me, he had asked me what I would want in a ring, and I told him, like, I don't really know. I want it like elegant and classy, but with like a different sexy, like twist. But I said, listen, there's this jeweler that I want to custom design my ring, because I knew like his energy was exactly what I wanted. And unbeknownst to me, he'd been working with this jeweler to design me a ring. I really like legitimately had no idea.
Wow.
And so we went to Key West and we were on the beach, and he, ended up getting down on one knee and proposing. And I was completely blown away. And of course I said yes. And we celebrated all night long, and the hotel gave us lots of champagne and all of that stuff. But, what I didn't know is that he had planned this whole proposal on the dry Tortugas. And it turned out that due to weather and ferry issues, like, you couldn't get there that week.
Oh.
So he told me after we got engaged was that he had this whole totally different proposal planned. And then because of, issues, we couldn't go to the Dratch Trugas. So he just decided to propose right then and there.
Oh my gosh. And it was still amazing. And
it was still amazing. And, we obviously had a great vacation, and, we then had to move our wedding date though 3 times. So I think that's also the thing, as kind of like, I think that are the type of people that we are. Like, we had a wedding template, and then he got redeployed, and then it was during the whole ISIS Afghanistan thing. And then, the deployment got extended and it got extended. And so we legitimately moved our wedding date and all the things that came with it 3 times. And actually, even in the end, moved locations. So yes, I mean, we had a beautiful wedding and it was amazing and everything that I wanted. But I think, those 2 stories, I think, show like both of our strength, and the things that kind of unite us too is that we're both people that can change the plan, and the outcome is more important than like the type A details of all of the things.
Yeah. Oh, I can only halfway imagine, because I changed the location of our wedding on Victor 3 months away from the wedding, and he had already planned the entire wedding at a different city. So yes, if things are meant to be, you're gonna jump all the hurdles to get there. You're not gonna be that person that says, "Oh, all the signs are pointing for me not right to not have this." You're like, "No, this is what I want. This is what wants me, and we're going to strengthen a relationship to get this."
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the marriage coaching and your expectations being slightly different than the way or I don't even know what your expectations were at the beginning, so you can tell me this, but what was your biggest takeaway out of marriage coaching? And like, is there a certain like mantra or thought or something that gets you through those times when you're like, your husband is doing something differently than maybe what you thought he would be doing or you expected him to do? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the biggest thing is really just the idea of seeing manuals, right? And then to also like, I think I have changed in the sense that I am more open in my love for him and in loving him exactly the way he is and in wanting him as he is. I think it's interesting that we always want people, I think, to see us and to be fully seen. And, the other thing is like one person can certainly change a relationship. And I'm not saying that like anything was ever horrible, like we weren't never contemplating divorce or something, but, we really went from, my husband is also very responsive, I think. I think too, like when my communication started showing up differently, his communication started showing up differently. So I think that is the other thing about coaching. Like if you show up different, it's possible that the other person, like without putting in any of like the same work that you did, just by being responsive, can show up completely different. And then those positive experiences can sort of build.
Absolutely. No, I totally get it. One person can change the entire dance. Absolutely. Okay. Well, tell me a little bit more about your practice and how it's evolved. Because I know I have watched you through our mutual like business coaching group we're a part of, Leverage and Growth Accelerator, right? Grow your aesthetics practice. Just like crazy. Like I was just been beautiful to watch this. So tell the audience a little bit about what that was like for you and how that affected your marriage, like any changes involved in your work life during the day and the evenings, because I know you've probably put hours into this. Tell us about this.
Yeah, it has been amazing. So, I still am an ER doctor. And, the one thing that I found was that ER did not fulfill like all parts of my soul. And, I was really interested in dermatology originally. And then I did a rotation in med school. And I know you have a lot of physician listeners, so I don't have to explain what rotations are. But I did a dermatology rotation expecting to love it. And it was like this old guy, and he would just do like rash prescription all day long. And I was like, I can't do this all day long. So, I loved ear because it was something different all the time. Every rotation I kind of got a little bit bored by the end of it. And so I was very happy with ear. And I don't know if it's the same with what you're doing, but I feel like the first 5 years of after residency, you learn as much as you do in residency. And then sort of that time had passed and I was like 7 or 8 years out. And I just kind of felt myself wanting more. And I was missing, the two things I was really missing was a very sort of creative, artsy side. And then also the interaction with my patients, because, in the ear, it's like a one and done. We're always thinking about the dispo, and the sicker the patients are, the less, you're going to have any sort of interpersonal relationship, even though, of course, you're still going to treat them with respect and listen and all of these things. So I had always followed aesthetics and had gone to a couple courses, and I had actually shadowed an aesthetic medicine doctor, and I thought it was really interesting. And so I got certified, did versus just one certification, like 7 or 8 of them. And then I had a little hobby business where, I did it for like my friends and family. And of course I had like an LLC and insurance, but, in terms of business, I wasn't running it as a business. It was just kind of like a fun side gig I did. And then, also I think through coaching, through general coaching, when I really thought about what it is that I wanted, and it was really like to lean into that and to pivot towards that. And so that's what I did. And, you're right. My aesthetics practice has grown tremendously. It's like flowing. It's beautiful. It's all the things. And I'm still as happy with it, if not more, because I do get that artistic side. I do get these great relationships, and some patients have been with me from the beginning. And, I really also love the creative endeavor of entrepreneurship. You and I are both entrepreneurs, and I love actually how creative business is, if you see it that way. So, and then of course, having done a lot of coaching and also so running a very successful business without giving myself up and making those choices, I think through coaching to also scale back and other things and being really mindful of time management. I think sometimes it becomes sort of a natural that you coach other people, right? And then, and that you want to give back. It's not just you doing it. It's also that I feel like coaching and those that have coached and taught and mentored me have given me so much that I really feel like I wanted to give back. And so I, was sort of helping other people out again, the hobby business with coaching. And then I, with just their businesses, because they would call me and they're like, your office is going so well and this is going so well. Let me tell you about all of my problems, right? And so I decided to formalize that. Like we talked about, I did Martha Beck's Wayfinder coach training. And I just, the reason I did Martha Beck was really because there was this part of my soul that was drawn to her. Like, I had been coached almost exclusively by life coach school coaches. So I think part of me just expected this is what I would do. And then I read one of her books, and I think like in the soul of my souls, I just knew that I wanted to have a little bit more of an embodied approach. And, as far as my relationship, my husband has been really supportive of my business. Like he's totally put together things and screwed up shelves and, and I think too, like once he realized like this was a legitimate business and, it wasn't like initially he was kind of laughing about it a little bit. Oh yeah, you're going to go do Botox. Sure. Like, make everybody smooth and whatever. But then I think he also realized the shift when I was putting it into a legitimate business. And, he's been very supportive. And it's funny because I'm building out a second location, like right now. So I went from a really tiny sublease to my current space, and now I'm building out I guess technically it's my third, but second new location where I purchased a building that I'm renovating. So I've sort of been, he's done a lot of security. I've been like, you need to do like my security. You need to tell the electrician how to like run the wires for all of the like, cameras and floodlights and like, because we actually had 2 break-ins too of the building site. And I was like, so you have to do this. So he's been really supportive. And I think at the same time, though, it has been a big conversation always of making decisions that also didn't just put our family last, because I think it's easy to get really into something and just take on more and more and more. And I think with the help of coaching and communication, I really believe firmly that you kind of almost first have to say no to create space before you add more things. So, right now, even I'm very mindful as to how many evenings I work, and evenings, except for maybe like one evening a week, are like for my family. And so we are really, both talking as to what our schedule is going to be like and when are we going to be gone. And now I'm traveling a little bit, speaking, which I completely love. But I think he knows that that's also part of like me being fully in my element. So he's very supportive. And the same when he travels for business, I'm very supportive. So it has definitely changed over the years. And I think it's just been a matter of also like sharing each other's visions and buying into each other's visions. Mm-hmm. And then I think like, both of us also have not done super crazy things. I mean, yeah, everything is crazy to another person, maybe in a different realm, but I think both of us have, nobody has like dove off the deep end. Like we've both sort of made like shifts over time that have had a lot of compounding interest, but it's not like I came in one day either and said, listen, I'm like quitting ER and I'm opening this aesthetic practice that's right now makes no money. Like, so I think it's also been, like turning up the dial, turning down the dial over time.
Yes, absolutely. You sound very understanding and supportive of one another. And it sounds like you have really amazing boundaries.
Yes. Yes.
Can you speak to that a little bit? Like, have you always had amazing boundaries when you were in residency ER? I mean, because you had a baby when you were starting this business.
Yes. Yeah. So no, I think most of us, especially females, like I was totally the people pleaser and didn't have amazing boundaries. It was actually coaching that has taught me the boundaries, to be really honest. Like I needed a lot of coaching around that. And I think that is one of the biggest shifts of taking my power back. I mean, when I started, in my first like real coaching program, which was with Sunny Smith, I was on all these unpaid committees. I was doing all this like unpaid, whatever, right? That was kind of really the thing that was making me unhappy, because it was this extra work that was taking me away from doing things I really wanted to do. And that doesn't mean I don't do things unpaid now. It just means that I'm very intentional of what I do and why I do it. So yes, I think you're absolutely right. And thank you for clarifying that. I think strong boundaries and really amazing time management skills is, I think, really the keys to success and really an intentionality behind everything that I do. So maybe that's what the boundaries come from, is that I'm very intentional in how I spend my time and my energy.
Yeah. Were you in academics before this? Because I know you're a PDER, right?
So it was actually part of this transition, because I'm ER trained and ER boarded. But as part of this whole like life, I call it like almost more like a realignment, and that's one of those things that I think why I was so drawn to Martha Beck, because one of the things she talks about in like her book, like finding your North Star and, living your most authentic life, and all of her amazing books like Steering by Starlight, is really that you just turn like 1 degree at a time towards like what you feel is the right path for you. And, if we travel this whole distance and we just change our course by 1 degree, we're going to end up in a completely different sort of endpoint. And I think that was really what one of those principles that I've really lived by, is that as your soul feels like you want to do something, you just turn towards it and listen for the next clue. And then you turn towards it and you listen for the next clue. And that's what pivoting in life is really all about. So as part of all of those changes that I made, I have restricted my hospital work to only pediatric ER. Now I had a split job that was 50-50 because I come from an ER board side. I didn't do pediatrics and then peds ER. I came from the ER side. And even though initially I guess maybe I was good at negotiating for a 50-50 job right out of the gate, but I realized that my love with an ER was really with the children, and I was getting a little burnt out on the adults. And so as part of all the changes that I've made, for the last maybe 4.5 years, I have worked exclusively peds ER because I just find so much more joy in those patient and parent interactions.
And so do you still do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So I right now still work 2 weekends a month. And, it's really kind of a lovely way to do it because I choose to, because right now I'm at a point that I don't really have to do it anymore. And for right now, it still serves like that bucket of like taking care of the kids, taking care of the parents, teaching residents. And, but the nice thing is that if tomorrow I didn't want to do it anymore, I could say, you know what, I'm so sorry. Like, this is no longer what I want to do. But I think that is, and I don't know how you feel about that. I assume you agree. That is the wonderful thing that like entrepreneurship has given you, is like this idea of a choice, is that, I am here because I want to be. It's sort of like in marriage, I'm here because I want to be. And when I say like turn up the dials up and down, I feel like that's true for everything in life, including your different entrepreneurial pursuits, because there's like limited energy and limited time and limited all this. So you can at any point turn one up, turn one down, whatever just feels right. And this season of life, that's another thing that I believe in fully, like seasons of life.
No, I am right there with you, Judith, because Victor and I worked on financial freedom very, very hard. And I will say the term that not that many people love that I hang around with now, but the word hustle. We hustled the first 5 years of our marriage in order, like real estate wise, managing our active real estate portfolio. And then before we switched into passive. And I feel the same way. Like I go to work because I want to, because I love working with the children. It's like one of my missions, one of my purposes. It fulfills some of my buckets. And the moment it stops, I'm not going to be there anymore. And as going back to what you said about the committees, like I am probably on, if I counted, maybe 7 committees, but I will say if these committees start eating into my evening time when I'm supposed to be with my children and not working, or projects on the weekends, I'm going to have to say no to that. And I am not afraid to tell my seniors or my boss that I can no longer work on this committee, because you know what, that one committee doesn't define me. The one career doesn't define me. We have so many other things in life. And just, if we're on 7 committees, eliminating one or just saying I have to step back a little bit and not lead this one, it shifts everything just a degree more towards family, or more towards even if it's just shifting into pediatric radiology a little bit differently, or in your case, pediatric ER, it's just shifting it more so that you're doing things in alignment with your values, your purpose, and it prevents that resentment and that burnout from creeping in. It's not we want to stop medicine. We want to be in medicine, help people. We just want to do it in a way that helps our marriage, helps our relationship with our children, right?
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. I think what you say is so wise, because you're right. That resentment, I think, comes a lot of times when people feel powerless and feel like they have no choice, and they feel like they're trapped and they have to do this. I mean, right. You always have a choice. Every choice comes with consequences. And, congratulations on like financial freedom. I am not there. Just like, also to be really honest with your listeners, I'm working towards it. And like I would have to work in my other businesses to make up for that income. So I'm not going to pretend that I don't at all have to be there. I just right now believe in my other businesses and their cash flowing, that, if I add an extra day here or so, like we'd be totally fine. So just wanting to be really honest also with your listeners.
The financial freedom, I think that the difference you're describing is the financial freedom versus the financial independence. Mm-hmm. What I see you like, from what I'm hearing, you might not have reached that where you can just stop working altogether and be financially independent, but you have the financial freedom now. If you wanted to go back to work do more ER shifts, you kind of have that freedom to switch back and forth of whatever you want to do,
Yes.
like,
Yes.
but I know I get that. And I'm going to ask you a question about arguments in your marriage, because my daughter actually brought this up to me last night as I was putting her to sleep. We had a beautiful family weekend. We did like birthday parties, gymnastics, dances, all these different things. My husband helped. My husband is very, very involved. He actually loves this kind of stuff, which I never even thought about. I mean, I never thought about I got married, but during the work week, he's at work. Weekends, unlike me, he never has to work weekends. I do work weekends like you. He does not, because the ER never stops. I'm always reading pediatric images. But as they say, cancer doesn't grow on the weekends, so he can usually not work weekends. So we probably got into a few, I don't know what you would call them. I don't know if I would call them arguments or if I would call them just like differences of opinions, and our tones changed and they fluctuated. And my 4-year-old has developed this new thing where when we're in this little tense argument, she covers her ears and she starts kind of whimpering. And I know it's developed the last couple of weeks, but it's made me more aware of when I am having a conversation that's a little bit more intense. So as I was putting my 6-year-old to sleep last night, my 4-year-old just conked out. She just went straight to sleep. My 6-year-old was like, Mommy, is it just you and Daddy that gets into arguments? Do all parents get into arguments? Like, and she was legitimately asking. I thought that was like, wow, how insightful for a 6-year-old to ask me this. So I'm going to ask you, Judith, in your history of relationships, have you found that it's normal, or friends, parents, yourself, is it normal for adults in the same relationship to get in arguments with each other?
I would say yes. Now, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I would say yes. And I think, again, your degree of argument obviously helps, matters. That's what I meant to say. Your degree of arguments definitely matters, because I think, I do think it's kind of healthy in a way to share your feelings and be in communication about them, versus I feel like if somebody says like, oh no, we never argue, I would sort of totally have a red flag there, as in like, which of you suppresses and just agrees, and so I would say, and I would want to teach my children is that if they believe something different, to speak up, and to make their voice heard, and that what you think matters. Now, again, I feel like arguments should be respectful. And, there's definitely also a time where sometimes, when we decide that right now is not the best time to talk about it, and we'll have a conversation about it either at a more appropriate time, or if one of us kind of says, listen, right now, I don't know that I can have a good conversation about this. I just need a little bit of time. Yes. So, but I do think that, we're human beings.
Yes.
We have differences of opinion. So in my mind, I would say that, of course, you don't want to have an unhealthy toxicness of arguments, but then I do think that people disagree and there's misunderstandings and all of that stuff. I think the whole idea is really to make them as maybe neutral and less personal. And I'm very good at getting over arguments. That's the other thing. I'm very much and I'm fairly calm, but I'm very much we've talked about it, it's done. So I think what's also unhelpful is holding grudges.
Yes.
And I'm not a grudge holder. And then also, I think a lot of times when arguments don't get heard and somebody doesn't feel heard, I think that's when it becomes this ongoing kind of thing. So I think it is probably healthier if you can do it in a somewhat respectful and, non-personal way, to let your differences in opinion be heard, versus either swallowed down or hold the grudge or completely not feel seen and then be resentful, because at some point it's like a volcano waiting to erupt. What do you think about that? But it is a very insightful question.
Yeah, no, I love it. And just for all of you guys listening, I did not feed her any of those answers. Those were all her own, although I take similar stances on all of them. I'm actually going to do a separate podcast on this. And then so she followed up with, why don't children, children get into arguments as much as adults? And I was thinking about it, and I think she's just thinking about her friends, not necessarily. She's 6 years old, right? She's got a lot of time to learn. If you took a snapshot in my house between my 4-year-old and my 6-year-old, they're getting into an argument every few minutes.
I was gonna say, my like almost 4 and 6-year-old, it seems like they fight all day long. I mean, not really, but there's a lot of different, but it's different, right? Because they might like snatch a toy or like hit each other, yell at each other, like it's.
Yeah, they want the same granola bar, So yes, I have more to talk about with her tonight. And speaking of arguments, what most couples argue, or the top 2 things that couples argue about in their marriage, are sex and money. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how you guys talk about money in your household and how you split that up.
Yeah, so I am totally going to be on team like split finances because it has actually worked amazingly well for us. And I think, the reason we started having split finances, or we never even thought about merging our finances, was the fact that, again, meeting later in life and getting together later in life, like, I was a physician and my husband, we got married. Yeah, I was a physician and my husband was, had a house and was like into his career. And so it was kind of, I think, again, I don't know that we ever really thought, either one of us thought it would be a good idea to kind of merge money. And in a way, I think it's actually really healthy that we didn't, because we really have no arguments about money whatsoever, because we sort of have come to this agreement of, like, I pay most of these bills and he gives me this much a month towards our joint bills. And, then like he is now retired. And so he has, he's building a business. Then his business is his and my businesses are mine. And, like he pays for some of the house stuff and I pay for like all of the kids stuff. And, I am much more into travel. So I generally pay for all of our travel experiences because they are much more extravagant than anything he would ever pay for. But then when he picks something, I'm like, I don't really want to do a Southwest flight and stay at the Holiday Inn. So let me just do this, like, right?
Okay, I am a huge Southwest fan over here. We've got the hub 10 minutes from my home.
Okay, we don't have a hub. It's just the last time, like, we flew Southwest, the only flight he ever booked, like, was just a nightmare with, like, the kid and, like, all the stuff because of finding seats together. And anyway. So, but he also loves being spoiled through my travel and being like, what do you mean we're not flying Delta One,
Yes, exactly. Oh, amazing. Okay.
So
you.
Yeah.
And how do you decide how much you like pay? So you like, he pays you for like the bills or the mortgage or that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So actually it was, so, when we first got together, again, he's enlisted military, so he was making a lot less than I was. And even though he had his house, once we then moved into like the house that we both wanted to raise children on, it was a different like price category house. And so he like literally gave me his like military housing allowance, and that number has never changed. And honestly, we're in a way like lucky that we're so financially secure that I'm not really like needing to like do this big countdown. I was like, hey, listen, like, this is what we agreed upon 10 years ago. Like, let's take into account inflation, this, that, and the other, So, but then again, for like, when we did a big reno, like, because his financial situation has changed, he paid for the reno. And, then I think it's worked really well because I think we both have an understanding of what our common financial goals are. And, we're both investing money into our common future. So, and the other thing is, though, even I had a high paying job, I also had like a lot of student loans and he had like no student loans, like, right. So, I mean, those aren't there anymore. But I think, we both feel like financially we're really fortunate. So again, like we also don't, I'm not worried about the small stuff, right? Like, I'm not worried to be like, oh, let's recount this money. Like, it's fine. We can all pay for everything we want.
You're not like tit for tat here. And this is something I love about this. What you said is you said, because we keep or you said something along the lines of this, we keep our finances separately. We've never had an argument. And I just want to point out the fact that I think you've never had you don't argue about money because you have your goals, your future. You said your common future is in alignment. Like you guys both know what you want, whether somebody decides to put them together or separate, you're just in alignment. You get the bigger picture. And so some of the smaller things, you're not going to argue about. And you have a mutual understanding, like the whole, okay, his housing stipend or whatever that he gets from the military, like how brilliant, like that's just easy. It sounds like you're just making it easy. He's going to do the house, you're going to do the kids, and just keep it simple and then move forward, like look to the future.
Oh, I love that. I feel like I'm getting my own money coaching here. You're absolutely right. I mean, I always thought the separate finances were easier. And there was definitely as I said, there's definitely conversations we had, but it does make it easy. And I honestly could not imagine having to ask my money if I could get my hair done or my Botox if I want to buy the kids stuff. That would just there's part of me that is just I don't think so.
Yes.
And I think he feels that same way. He has some very expensive hobbies, he does jet skis and boats and stuff. And I don't know that I really want to know how much these aluminum, this, that, and the other really cost, because that would probably feel that same way than if he knew what I paid my hairdresser. Right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Same thing. First time Victor ever saw me pay for my hair, after we were married, the first couple of months, he was like, we're getting discretionary funds and I'm not seeing what you pay for your hair.
I think it's healthy that way.
Absolutely. Healthy hair, healthy mind, healthy relationship. Okay. So I want you to tell one more funny story, and then you're welcome to share anything else that you want to share with the audience. But I want to hear a little bit about, I think you had a renovation and then you had to move in with your mother-in-law and that kind of.
Yeah. So the thing, I always think the worst parts for our marriage so far, and I can laugh about it now, has been renovations. We've done 2 renovations. We did one kitchen one early on in our marriage that was totally low point, because I was going to do the surprise kitchen reno. And of course, contractors tell you actually the whole surprise downstairs reno. I mean, my husband was deployed, and contractors always tell you we can be done in this time. And so my husband comes home from deployment and the downstairs of our house is gutted. So, and he did not react like I thought he would react, as in pure delight that I was doing this major renovation of our house.
And he didn't know about it? That it was going to be gutted?
Again, I was going to do this really nice thing. And at the time, it was his house. And I was going to reno it to make it amazing, because we both hated the kitchen. And I blew down a wall, had the contractors. And anyway, yes. Again, I wonder why he did not react. Anyway, but then we did a big reno on our now house, and it ended up being an 18-month reno. And we had it staged as a reno where we were only supposed to move out for a month in the whole reno, where they were going to do our master bathroom and the kitchen at the same time. So we had it literally had this elaborate plan how we're going to do the staged reno. We were going to move around this house because it's a big house, and all is well. And we're about 6 months in, and it was April, and somebody blew out a wrong wall. So immediately we lost AC and power to the house. And so we had to literally move out. And we had not planned on moving out. So the only place, and we did not know how long it was going to be. So we moved in with his mother, which again, big relationship tip, don't do that ever. And so my daughter at the time, who was 2, my husband and me pregnant, lived at my mother-in-law's house in a single bedroom for 7 months. And I actually ended up going into labor there. Now, another kind of funny labor story there is that morning I was having contractions again. This is baby number 3. So I knew these were the real ones. And I was like, hey, honey, I know I was going to I had stopped working the day before. So I was like, I know like I was going to bring like Vanessa to school today, but like, I don't feel so good. Like we're going to have a baby today. Like, can you drop her off? And he was like, yeah, okay. And then he goes to work. So finally I'm there and I was like, well, I'll just drive myself to the hospital. Like this will be totally fine. Except for by the time I needed to go to the hospital, I was like, I can absolutely not drive myself to the hospital anymore. And then I called him and he was like, yeah, I'm 45 minutes away. I think you need to call an ambulance. And so I ended up being a co-imminent delivery in my own ER. And, they couldn't call in who it was, right? So the doc like meets me and sees me and was like, oh my God, I'm not delivering your baby. And so they walked me upstairs. Of course, like the charge nurse is all like, can you give us a urine? Da, 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 da. And she's like, no, she's having a baby right now. And they checked me and I was 10. And literally, like, as I crawled from the ambulance stretcher to the actual room, like 2 more pushes and the baby was out. And it was totally one of those, like, any available OB to labor and delivery, whatever the room was, any available OB. So anyway, but that is my funny renovation story. And then, unfortunately, my husband did not make it for the delivery of this baby.
Was your mother-in-law there?
Well, yeah, she was, but she was not in the hospital. Oh no. But
she couldn't drive you to the hospital.
Oh no, because she was like no help. She was totally freaking out. So here I'm on like all fours being like, I need to go to the hospital, call him. And she was useless. So she did call 911. But anyway, she was just like, I don't know what to do. And I was like, yeah, you're probably not the right person to drive me. Plus she drives so slow. That was the other thing that I was like, she drives like a person that's almost 80. Like that is not who you want to drive you in a hospital when you're literally like, listen, I might push you any second.
It's just because you'd like, I can labor the whole time at home, right? It's more comfortable. I can eat.
Yeah. Well, I didn't think it would turn in like that much of an instant, if that makes sense. I totally was like, I have time. And then I was like, oh, I have no time. So anyway, it was a funny story. And so then we actually passed inspection for the house like the day after my son was born. And I was like, you're going to move everything back into my house. Like we're not going back to your mother's with a baby. So again, he didn't stay at the hospital with me because he was like busy, like moving at least like, I was like, listen, we need a bedroom, we need a living room, and we need a kitchen. That's all we need. And then I think we bought like takeout food, like, like Thai takeout on the way home.
Yeah.
From the hospital with the baby.
And then your 2-year-old or your 1/2-year-old, were they staying with your meal at the time?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. All 3 of us were in one bedroom. It was a great time. Especially, I don't know how big your house is, but we're used to quite some space.
Oh my gosh.
More than a guest room for 7 months.
Oh my gosh. So we're used to moving around a lot. We're definitely nomadic around Dallas. I was in a different apartment, every single baby that was born within 6 years. But at least we had the entire apartment. Like we had a 1-bedroom, then we had a 2-bedroom, then we had a 3-bedroom. Like, so yes. And my mother did drive me to the hospital while I was at the end of my labor for my 3rd child. And I had her drive the wrong way because I was not paying attention and I was like posting on Instagram or something instead. But we got there. And then Victor drove 45 minutes from work through traffic and he made it. But I love this. I love pregnancy story. I did not know, Judith, that the house renovation story was going to be your pregnancy story.
Yes. It's my house renovation story. And I do say that like every time our marriage was at a somewhat all-time low because a house renovation is like, it's stressful.
So I believe the best thing you can do for yourself when you're doing a renovation with your spouse, your lover, is hire a designer, hire it out. Whatever it is that is causing the argument or the tension, hire somebody else to come in and just do it.
I think the problem that we were having was really more the fact that like my husband being military and military precision had such a hard time with the fact that our general contractor and all of that, like, I'm sort of like, right now I'm renovating this building. And I'm like, well, they say 6 months. I should plan a year. They say X number, $100,000. I should probably double it.
Yes.
I think like the problem was that he was like, but this is the time and per our flow sheet, like this is what's supposed to happen. And, and contractors don't work on that same mentality.
You double it and you triple the time, double the cost. That is exactly correct. Oh my gosh. Well, this has been so amazing having you on my show, Dr. Judith Borger. Is there anything else as it pertains to medicine, marriage, money, anything that you would like to share with our audience, or anything we've already said that you just want to reiterate?
No, I just love that we've had this conversation, and I loved your insights on it. Like, it is kind of fun to tell the story and then have a coach like you kind of analyze it. And I think now telling these stories, I think what is really fun that I didn't expect is really like this total, like I'm sitting here in a total gratitude for my relationship, right? Because we do have a great relationship. And yes, it's not all, roses and all of that stuff. But, like you said, we have common goals. Like, we agree on all of the big things. And thank God, neither one of us sweat the little stuff. Maybe that's also what we have in common.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. And I love, this, when you're coming on this show and anybody listening, these concepts are supposed to put you right there in gratitude. In appreciation, right? They say Tony Robbins says this, trade expectations for appreciation, and your whole life will change. Your life will never be the same. So thank you so much, Dr. Judith Borger, and tell us, where can we find you?
Yes, thank you for asking. So, of course, I have a med spa in Fayetteville, which I assume not very many people are there. But I also, and if you're there, why have I not met you yet, right? But I also do coaching and courses at The Aesthetic Doctor, www.theaestheticdoctor.com. I have a podcast, The Aesthetic Doctor Podcast, where it's really all about living your most beautiful and authentic life. And And I'm very active on Instagram at Dr. Borger, and I love hearing from people. I love making connections. So definitely reach out. I'm always available.
Yay! And I've already tagged you on 2 stories since we've been talking. So okay, look out for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you are finding the concepts I teach in these episodes useful and want more in-depth and personalized support for your relationship, consider this your invitation to join me in creating the most connected and intimate relationship with your spouse that you could dream of. Go to www.medicinemarriageandmoney.com right now and download my 18-page medical marriage survival guide and workbook at no cost to you. I also have a 6-day marriage challenge, which goes over the 6 predictors of divorce at no cost to you. These have been known to decrease fighting, rumination, and grudges between you and your loved one. If you want to take it a step farther, really enhance the joy and connection in the most intimate relationship in your life, sign up for my 8-week Making Marriage Work program today at medicinemarriageandmoney.com. Thanks for leaving us a stellar review, subscribing, and sharing with your friends on social media. You have the power to improve someone else's life and marriage simply by sharing this episode. Much love to you and your spouse. You're exactly where you need to be in this moment. Adios, my friends. The content of this episode is not intended to be a substitute for professional, medical, or financial advice. The opinions provided on this episode are those of myself or the invited guest alone. They do not represent the opinions of any particular institution. Always seek the advice of your physician or financial advisor with any questions you may have of a medical condition or financial plan. This is for your entertainment only.